Welcome back to part 4 of our dental practice SEO series. Today we're going to talk about link building, which is the part of the SEO process that's going to have the biggest impact on how well your practice shows up on Google, but it's also the hardest part of SEO to do. So today I'm going to try my best to simplify this as much as possible and give you some actionable advice that you and your staff could use to build more links to your website and really improve how well your practice shows up online in order to attract more patients. Link building is arguably the single most important thing that is going to increase your rankings on Google. It is the biggest factor that Google looks at in order to determine whether to show your practice to potential patients or whether it chooses to show one of your competitors instead. Link building is the process of finding and getting backlinks to your website, or in other words, basically getting other websites, ideally good websites, authoritative websites, getting them to link back to your website. So for example, if my website has a link to your website, that's a backlink. If somebody wrote an article about you and in that article there is a link to your practice website, well, that's a backlink. Now, why is that important and why does it matter? Now, in order to answer that, let's take a deeper look at how Google works and why it's so good at helping people find what they're looking for. So when Larry Page and Sergey Brin, the founders of Google, when they were at Stanford, they had a very simple, but at the time was actually a very novel idea. So when they looked at different research papers in university, they found that there was a correlation between how many times a given piece of research was cited by other research papers versus how useful that research was. So they argued that the paper that was cited 1,000 times by 1,000 other research papers probably was better and more valuable than the research paper that was only cited 100 times, and they were correct. So they applied this logic also to organizing websites. So the idea was that the more other websites link to a particular website, the more useful that particular website must be. So for example, if you run a dental practice and you have a website, and I run a dental practice and I also have a website. Now let's say that your website has 10 other websites linking to your website. So you have 10 backlinks. And now let's say my website has 100 other websites linking to it. Google is going to think that for whatever reason, my website must be more valuable because there's just more people talking about it. There's more people that are linking to it. So if you want to rank better on Google, one of the most important things that you can do is to get other websites to link to your website. But it's not just a numbers game. Google does take a look at the quality of the websites that are linking to you, not just the number of links that you have. So going back to my earlier example, let's say you only had 10 links to your website, but they were from really good, authoritative, trustworthy websites, in the dental field. And let's say my 100 links were coming from like low quality, spammy, these sort of crappy websites. Well, in that situation, your 10 links would actually be worth a lot more in Google's eyes than the 100 crappy links that I have. So first, let's talk about the easiest ones, the easiest links to get, the sort of like low-hanging fruit. These are going to be directory listings. So if you're building a profile page on Facebook or Yelp or LinkedIn, Yellow Pages, Yahoo, Better Business Bureau, things like that, these all count as backlinks because on those listing pages, there's probably a link to your website. The next best types of links that you can get are called niche directory listings or citations. And these are basically websites that are, they're directories, but they're more specific to dentistry. So this would include things like Rate My Dentist, Rate MDs, or maybe you're listed on ADA.org, the American Dental Academy, or maybe, if you're, let's say, an Invisalign provider, you fill out your profile on the Invisalign website so that you can be found by people there. And on that, directory listing, on that profile page, there is a link to your practice. These are really good backlinks because they come from dental websites or more medical specific websites. They're going to carry a lot more weight in Google's eyes when it comes to improving your rankings versus just having a listing on Yelp, for example. Now, the next best types of links after this would probably be professional affiliations and sponsorships. So for example, let's say your practice sponsors a Little League baseball team in your town. You should have your practice mentioned on their website, on their sponsors page with a link to your website. This carries a lot of weight in Google's eyes because it's a local organization in your area talking about you. If you're part of the local chamber of commerce, that's another place that you should have your website listed with a link, to your site. These are all really good backlinks. Now, the next tier above that are going to be things like blog posts and articles from good, credible websites. So let's say hypothetically the local newspaper, they write an article about you on their website. And you want to make sure that in that article it mentions your practice and there is a link to your website. So here's a real example. One of our clients in Ontario, Canada, they're very passionate about orthodontics and functional appliances. And we partnered with a local blog in their area called Modern Mississauga. And we had an article written to educate parents that there's more options to treating, crowding in their kids' teeth. It's an informative piece of content, and at the bottom there's a link to this particular dentist's website. And this is a really good backlink. It actually drives a lot of authority in Google's eyes. Now, local awards are also, a good source of, very powerful backlinks. So for example, here's a Reader's Choice Award for one of our clients that drives a lot of ranking power because Google knows this is a legitimate award and it's not easy to get. Here is a top 3 best cosmetic dentist award for one of our clients in Hamilton. And this link actually drives a tremendous amount of value because Google looks at the links from this website and realizes that, it's a credible, trustworthy, high quality website. A link from them carries a lot of value. The very high quality backlinks, the ones that will really drive a ton of value and help you get to the first page of Google, they're not easy to get. They take research. You have to find, people in your area that you can collaborate with to create content. It involves you, legitimately doing an amazing job, like running a really good practice, winning real awards in your area. In many ways, good SEO is a lot like doing good PR. Now, how many backlinks you need to get to the #1 spot on Google really depends on who you're competing against and what other dentists in your area are doing for SEO as well. So if you're in a small town where nobody's really doing anything, then all you might need to do is simply create some directory listings, like submit your business to Yelp, Google, Yellow Pages, add some nice photos to those listings, make sure you have some nice descriptions, that the hours of operation are correct, and it just has a link to your website. Now, in bigger and more competitive cities where there's a ton of dentists and they're all doing SEO as well, then if you're just building some directory listings, it's not going to be enough because everybody's trying to do the same thing too. So you need to get a lot more creative and find ways to get local organizations and websites to talk about you and link to your practice website. You need to get much higher quality backlinks as well. And this is what makes really good SEO companies so expensive. To build some directory listings, that's simple. Anybody can do that. It's just data entry. Anybody can go on Yelp and, create a profile page for your practice. And that's typically all you're really getting from SEO companies that only charge a couple $100s a month. But often this is nowhere near enough to really help you rank well in much more competitive cities because there's too many other dentists and they're all doing the exact same thing. The really good SEO companies focus on getting you the links that are really difficult to get, the ones that drive a lot of authority to your website because you can't just buy them, you have to earn them. Now, this includes things like winning legitimate awards from real authoritative websites and companies, having interesting articles written about you in local newspapers, partnering with local writers or bloggers and, creating some great educational content, mentioning your website or maybe sponsoring the right organizations and, knowing how to get the spotlight to shine on your practice because you're involved with those organizations. I hope you found this video useful and it sheds some light and some knowledge on how backlinks work and some of the different ways that you can get backlinks to your website. Now stay tuned for our final part 5 video on dental SEO, where we're going to talk about conversion rate optimization, or turning all those website visitors into actual booked appointments, butts in the chair, people that actually come in and pay for dentistry. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.